So welcome to Living Your Best with Advanced Metastatic Chronic or Non-Curable Cancer, supporting the quality of life throughout the cancer journey. Today's topic is weight changes throughout the journey. My name is Nikki, and I'm so pleased you could join us for this evening's Be Well Talk. Do you want to start with our land acknowledgement? Our health and well-being are connected to the land and the environment that surrounds us. We acknowledge that the land we share, learn, and live on are the traditional territories in Alberta of Treaty 6, Treaty 7, and Treaty 8. This is also the home of the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation within Alberta. Here at Wellspring, we are both settlers and Indigenous, and we pay tribute to those whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Wellspring acknowledges the traditional healing pathways and knowledge of our interconnectedness with the land as gifts provided by elders and knowledge keepers. Throughout the year, Wellspring Alberta offers more than 70 evidence-informed programs that address the emotional, social, practical, and restorative needs of people living with cancer. These programs are offered at no charge to our members and without referral. Our mission is that no one has to face cancer alone. Living Your Best is a collaboration with Cancer Care Alberta and Wellspring Alberta, and you can find previous talks that were part of this series on our website. And now for a short introduction of our speaker tonight. Erin Benner is a registered dietitian who has specialized in cancer care for the whole of her career, first at Cancer Care Alberta for 10 years and since 2017 with Wellspring and in private practice. So Erin, we're so grateful that you are able and willing to be with us tonight, and I will pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. Very happy to be here again, giving a Be Well talk. I love these opportunities to speak on a different subject outside of the Nourish program that's offered through Wellspring, which has been a lot of fun to do as well. So if you haven't done one of the Nourish classes, I encourage you to give one of those a try too. So today we're going to be talking about weight changes through the cancer journey. And this is something that Nikki asked me to present on, knowing that this comes up frequently and is kind of a source of questions for a lot of people. So I am going to share a slideshow, and then I'm going to give lots of time for us to have a question and answer period as well. Like Nikki said, you can put your questions in the chat. I'll also, we'll open up the mics after the presentation too, to give you that opportunity to share then. Right, hopefully that is looking okay for everybody. Yep, we're good. Okay, awesome. That's me, registered dietitian and nutritionist. So as Nikki said, I did work at the Cancer Center for a number of years in a variety of different clinics there. First starting in the stem cell transplant clinic, head and neck, breast, lung, GI cancer as well. So definitely saw a wide variety of people coming through the center with a variety of challenges. But one of the common things that would come up, and one of the reasons why a dietitian is part of the team there, is because of the weight changes that many people experience, sometimes coming into diagnosis, but also through the treatment journey. So today we're going to be kind of expanding on this idea, talking about weight change, why it happens, what it means, and how to kind of think about it as part of your care program, and giving you some ideas of how to support that, and then answering your questions as well. So weight change is very common. And of course, we become a little bit more aware of it through treatment because it's not uncommon to be weighed frequently when you're coming to the cancer center. So we often use weight as kind of a marker of almost like a lab value where we're kind of looking at the blood work. We're also looking at weight and using that to kind of inform on somebody's health as they go through treatment. Usually we think about weight loss being a significant factor, but we also do see weight gain through treatment as well. So we're going to be addressing both realities and experiences too. Weight change can be brought on from the treatment. So there can be demands of the treatment and increased need for nutrition as your body goes through that treatment and tries to heal and repair and recover in between those cycles or treatments. We can also see symptoms of the cancer itself. So this could change the types of foods you're eating, your ability to eat, your desire to eat, and side effects can also affect this as well. So things like nausea, gastrointestinal changes. We could also see swallowing changes, taste changes, kind of like intolerances to foods or things just don't seem as appealing. We also see some of the medications can affect our body's metabolism, and that can also create a space for weight fluctuations. Hydration, like getting the IV hydration, can also change your body weight. Then we also see things like the hormone effect. This is more common with cancers that are treated with hormone therapy. So like in a breast cancer case, stress we also see as like a major factor too, right? So stress can reduce appetite, but it can also increase appetite or increase eating behaviors as well. We tend to see reduced or changes in activity. So this might just be changes in your daily routines, maybe your exercise program, what you do in a day. Maybe you were working and now you're not working right now. So all of those changes in activity levels can have an effect. Sometimes people are more active as they come to more appointments and they're parking and walking, between. So that can also be a factor. And we also see changes in the way the body uses and requires energy. And this can also result in changes in the muscle and the fat tissue in the body. And that will change the weight balance as well. So you can see it's not just kind of a one cause and effect. There's a variety of reasons why we see these weight changes, and they can fluctuate throughout the cancer journey too. So some people might come in with weight loss and then through treatment might start to see weight gain and have, advice like just eat what you want and, gain back that weight. We really need you to hang on to that weight. And then some people find that they go above their usual body weight. And and then that can change. Maybe they get a virus and then they're not eating as much, and then the weight drops again. And we can see this kind of fluctuation and oscillation through treatment. And that's part of the journey as well. We know that the scale doesn't actually tell the whole story. So even though we're stepping on this device that tells you how much your body is weighing at that time, we can also see that you could be on that scale from 1 week to the next with no changes in your body weight, but you might have more muscle or less muscle. There might be a change in your body fat percentage. You could have more fluid retention. So that number doesn't often tell us kind of what's going on with the tissues inside of our body. So it can be a little misleading sometimes. And for a lot of people, it can create extra stress as well. So one of the reasons why we do monitor weight through treatment is we're using it as a marker of muscle mass. What we would see is that when there's a significant loss in muscle mass, it impacts the body's ability to kind of like, well, to heal and recover. It can also affect things like your energy level, what you're able to do in the day, where you're able to go, like your mobility and movement. It can affect your balance and your metabolism, and it can also impact your recovery and your resilience. So we know that that muscle mass is really important and needs to be protected as much as possible through treatment to help provide a better quality of life, and to keep the body strong and more resilient through the treatment as well. So when we're looking for that weight loss, whenever we see what's called a significant weight change, specifically, we're looking typically for a weight loss. We know that there is muscle mass being lost through that process. And that would always work as kind of, or I shouldn't say always work, but it was meant to serve as like a flag saying like, okay, there's a loss here that could impact treatment. So we want to make sure that we're addressing why that weight loss is happening and provide additional support. So for example, when like at the head and neck clinic, we'd be weighing everybody every week. And if they lost more than 5% of their body weight over a month or those 4 weeks of treatment, then we would consider like a feeding tube, especially if that meant that they had lost that weight because they were having a hard time swallowing a variety of foods. It would also often trigger a referral to a dietitian if it was in like a different clinic where they maybe didn't have weekly access to a dietitian, but that served as kind of like a screening tool to show that some additional support was needed to provide that additional strength through treatment. Um, So when you're eating less, while you have increased nutrition needs, a gap kind of opens up. And our what we see through treatment is that you need more protein. Protein is the building block for a lot of our tissues, things like our immune system, our blood cells, um, and even just like our skin tissue and that too, things like hair, nails, your the lining of your intestinal tract is another example that we turn over those cells really quickly. So there's a high demand for protein to replenish and replace those cells that are kind of sloughed off and replaced very frequently, like kind of throughout the week. Um, so that protein need is higher through treatment because you're trying to keep that immune system strong. Some cells are having a hard time, like they're being interrupted by the treatment. We also see the effects of the gastrointestinal system through certain treatments change as well. So that protein need increases, and if it doesn't come from food, our body can withdraw it from our muscles. And break down that protein from the muscle and repurpose it for what it needs to do. The immune system is a good example of like a high priority cell to use that protein. So that's where we kind of start to see that muscle mass decreasing. There also can be the impact of inflammation. So the body is, when it has higher needs, it's working harder. There's kind of more that it's battling against. Then that inflammation piece can also call upon more protein. It can also affect the way our body deposits muscle mass. So when there is a lot of inflammation, it's harder to actually put muscle on or to take that protein and use it or to store it, because that inflammation process is hungry and requires additional calories and protein and nutrients as well. Treatment side effects, of course, can just also make it more difficult to eat protein-rich foods. So meat might become less appealing. Maybe the taste is kind of metallic. The smell of it cooking is maybe a little bit nauseating, or even just to chew and swallow it, it takes a little bit more time. It's a little bit harder. So these kind of side effects can also make it more difficult to meet that higher need. Um, and then again, we kind of see that with changes in activity, maybe you're not using that muscle as much, and therefore it doesn't hold the same way, and it's easy to use it for that tissue repair and recovery. So the cancer-related muscle loss that we see is, you know, a little bit more specific and nuanced than just, muscle loss that we see because of aging. It's not simply starvation. It's not solved just by eating more alone, because it also involves that inflammation and metabolism change um, that's happening throughout the journey. And that tends to make it a little bit more complicated as well to stop or to intervene and to reverse that process. So while we might be using weight as a method of screening for muscle loss, another thing to notice is if you're finding it harder to climb the stairs, it's more difficult to do certain acts of daily living, like carrying your groceries or, lifting a box or, um, even like changing the sheets on the bed or doing laundry, those sorts of things. If you're finding that's more difficult, that can be an indication that your muscle is reducing. Fatigue is also a big one. So muscle cells, the more of them we have, the more energy factories in our body that we have. So as our muscle mass reduces, we also lose some of our body's ability to produce and generate energy. So that can also lead into fatigue. Sometimes your loved one will see this with like a slower walking speed. It's taking a little bit longer to get through the parking lot. Um, sometimes that can be like a shortness of breath, but if you're just finding that, yeah, you're just moving a little bit slower, that can be related to that muscle loss. But a lot of people also experience weight gain. And I think this is one of those unexpected factors that come into play, especially for longer duration treatments. So we can see this more likely with like immune therapy, hormone therapy, different like kind of types of chemotherapy over time, or one treatment, then a break, and then something else. Yeah, there's kind of lots of reasons why this weight gain, it can also be part of the cancer journey. As treatments get a little bit more targeted and the medications to manage the side effects are more effective as well, and the care and the support is better. We don't necessarily, not everyone is at as high a risk of having weight loss because of the treatment side effects. Things like steroids that have been used to help manage nausea and vomiting can reduce muscle mass and increase hunger for some people, and also change your metabolism, potentially leading to more like insulin resistance, for example, or different blood sugar regulation challenges. Um, People also describe digestion changes, and that can start, feeling different in your stomach. And for some people, that increases their like stomach space, like in the abdomen. They feel a little bit more bloated, and things don't fit the way they used to. Sleep disruption also comes into play, and that can be a factor in weight gain. Going through a stressful time, it's really common to manage stress with food and eating. Sometimes people also find that people are maybe bringing them meals or snacks or treats, or they're being advised by their healthcare team, like, eat whatever you want, just make sure you don't lose any weight. It's also very normal to feel like you want more carbohydrates or like sweet foods or comfort foods. That can come into play too. When you're fatigued, you might feel less likely to cook or prepare foods or go grocery shopping. So you might be choosing foods that are a little bit easier to prepare, or a little bit more convenient as well. So that fatigue can also make it harder to make healthy choices and to do all of the steps that it takes to make healthy meals regularly. And then, of course, there's that reduced activity piece as well. So you're not burning as many, or you're not moving and using as many calories that way or as much energy. That can create less muscle loss, or sorry, more muscle loss. And then because your muscle also requires energy to stay there, the your metabolism decreases, I guess, as you lose muscle mass. So you need, in some ways, you need less energy, but that equation gets a lot more complicated. It's not sometimes how we think of, energy in, energy out. That balance is what you need to look at for weight balance. Um, that equation doesn't really serve very well through this journey because there's so many other factors that will affect how that equation balances out. So even though we tend to be very focused on these numbers, I challenge you to think of a different weight goal. So instead of thinking of, losing weight or not gaining weight or, kind of having a weight specific goal, having a kind of more of a perspective of like weight well-being and a bigger umbrella or, a softer understanding um, of weight and how that affects your health and well-being, and giving yourself a little bit of extra grace and understanding because it is so nuanced and complicated. So nutrition plays a really, really valuable role in managing this balance. So it's, again, not just about the calories or the amount of food you're eating, but you actually want to be thinking of nutrition as a foundation for that weight well-being. So specifically through cancer care, we want to be acknowledging the important role of protein and protein in the diet, understanding what your protein needs are based on, your history, your treatment, the types of foods you're eating, weight balance over time, immune system, all of these factors. You want to get an individualized idea of what that protein requirement is, as well as how you can meet it. So it's fine to get that number, and we're definitely seeing a lot more focus on protein out in, media, and people are talking about it. We're definitely seeing it in grocery stores now. Like everything has like a plus protein label on it. So we can be more aware of it, but understanding how to connect your requirements with strategies to actually get that, that's an important thing to figure out and make that nutrition piece work for you. Now, it's not just all about protein. So even if you're meeting that protein requirement, you also have to be meeting your energy requirements as well. Because if you're not getting enough calories or energy from your food, you're going to still burn that protein just like a fuel. So it won't go to maintaining that muscle mass or to preserving those immune cells. It could just be burnt as energy or like used as energy, kind of like, yeah, just to fuel your basic needs. We also need supportive nutrients like vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients to improve the way that that protein is used in our body. So to build with protein, I always kind of think of protein kind of like Lego, where you can, break it down and rebuild it into something else. But you need those supportive hands from different nutrients to put those pieces in the right place. So it's a little bit more complex than just, eating that protein, it turning into muscle. You also need important nutrients to support those higher requirements through treatment. It's also important to be thinking about the habits and strategies. So I always think, like, as a dietitian, everyone kind of assumes that, I'm going to calculate their macronutrients and I'm going to give them a meal plan that meets their macronutrients. But a lot of the work that we do is actually helping to translate that requirement into actual daily, habits and strategies. And that's where things can get really tricky, right? So because of certain limitations or the way you're feeling or the foods that are working or what you have access to or energy for, it's important to tailor your nutrition plan so that it can actually work for you and you can implement it. And sometimes that has to evolve over time. So that's also the tricky thing about this throughout the journey is, one day might look vastly different from another. The foods that you maybe liked one week are not the ones that you want this week, or maybe during, one type of treatment, this type of diet worked really well for you, but then certain foods maybe don't sit well. You feel a little bit nauseous if you eat them. So you're finding a new pattern or different foods that can work for you. And making those transitions can be a little bit challenging. So identifying when something has changed and that your strategies or your approach needs to change too. So that can kind of be the value of, working with your care team, working with a dietitian to help implement that and work that out for yourself. Luckily, through the Alberta Cancer Care Program, we do have a lot, or I shouldn't say a lot, but we have programs like ACE. So having activity programs built into treatment or accessible for people who have had a cancer experience, that's really supportive for that muscle recovery. So we need that nutrition, we need that movement, and we also need time. So putting those all together can help for that muscle recovery. I think a lot of the people I work with, they sometimes get frustrated or concerned that maybe they're doing something wrong when they feel like their recovery, like their energy isn't coming back, their strength isn't coming back. And, maybe they've been done treatment for a couple of months and they're kind of on a break or they don't have anything super taxing right now and they're expecting their energy level to get better. But it's not improving or it's not like it used to be. So that challenge is one of those like massive quality of life issues that people bring up. Cancer related fatigue is kind of like the number one side effect that people address with their healthcare team, like really quite a while after treatment. So we're looking at that kind of like 6 month, even to like 5 year window, where fatigue can still feel very limiting and debilitating or frustrating or just feeling like it's not where they want it to be. So again, kind of working on that muscle piece, that movement, that nutrition, and then giving yourself some time and space is really important for supporting that muscle recovery. Now, I know a lot of people I work with, we think a lot about the weight. For some people, they notice that their body changes a lot through this journey. So it doesn't look the same. Um, it's shifted, it's things don't fit the same way. They don't feel like, yeah, their body is maybe what it used to be, and kind of rebuilding a relationship with your body and how you perceive and see yourself can be a really challenging part of the journey as well. Thinking about weight too, it can create a lot of stress. So, whether that be kind of from the healthcare team being concerned about changes, or just maybe you've always been aware of your weight and seeing it change can make you feel stressed or kind of out of control. And that can be really challenging for people as well. Um, there's a lot of baggage that comes with our ideas of weight and health and that relationship too. So that can be a little bit challenging to when you're presented with that and you're trying to kind of uncover that while going through, something that's challenging and almost like a marathon where you know that you need that kind of additional information and support. And I think that's, one of the really important messages is to understand that those weight changes are normal. They're very common and maybe they are unexpected. It's not what you thought it would look like, but it's important to talk about it, to bring it up with your healthcare team and understand that it's okay to ask for support and some direction because this can be a very confusing and nuanced space. So, if you notice that you are experiencing weight changes, whether that be a weight loss or a weight gain, and you know that you maybe don't have a lot of control over that, getting that support, talking to your healthcare team, potentially asking to have a referral to a dietitian that can really have major implications for your overall well-being. It can improve your resilience through treatment. It can improve that fatigue, reduce your stress, and yeah, just make you feel a lot better. If nothing else, it gives you information that can, help carry you forward and take those next big steps. So I realize all the formatting of my slides kind of got messed up as I downloaded them, but I think it's important to sometimes we get a little bit caught up with kind of the diet culture and like what looks like success when it comes to weight. And sometimes we feel like it has to be a major change and it has to happen quickly for it to be considered success. But I would encourage you to reframe that and think about weight well-being as kind of building in and making small changes that can amplify by just, making little strides. So you might notice that you can walk a little bit further, you have a little bit less fatigue, maybe your appetite's a little bit better, you have a little bit more strength, or a little bit more capacity to do things. Seeing an improvement in your treatment tolerance or those cycles and recovery, and then also enjoying those activities you love. And these are really the reasons why we are thinking about weight and we are thinking about that nutrition and movement piece and really making that accessible and making that conversation available to people going through a cancer diagnosis so that they can get that support and they can see those improvements and just feel a little bit better. So just, as a little bit of a summary, just really, normalizing the fact that weight changes are very common. Um, and it's not a sign of failure if you have gained weight, there's not something wrong. Maybe you've been eating the same way the whole time, yet you still have seen weight changes. So just really understanding that there's a lot going on behind that number on the scale. Your body really is experiencing something very unique related to cancer and its treatment. And that muscle piece is really, really important. And we do want to be trying to preserve that as much as possible at every stage. So whether that be really early on, like in diagnosis, beginning treatment, or it could even be, years after treatment has started, any time, even like many years after diagnosis, we're still factoring in that muscle piece and trying to improve muscle mass to get all those benefits, including that like energy and longevity and capacity and quality of life. So, thinking of nutrition as a way that it can support that strength and enjoyment of life versus thinking of diet as a way to kind of restrict and maybe hold back or manage weight. We want to be thinking about nutrition as a way that it can support strength and that enjoyment and energy for life. And we do that through, yeah, ensuring that you're getting that nutrition that you need because those needs have changed and they tend to be higher than we think that they are. So that can make things a little bit more tricky, but a lot more valuable to be bringing it into your care. All right. So we can stop recording now. Thank you for participating.
Erin, thank you so much for that and for, normalizing the reality that many of us live with after a cancer diagnosis.